Hello, welcome, Jacob. Happy to have you here today. And well, the topic that we're going to discuss hasn't been really part of the conversation so far we've had at the podcast. So I find it's going to be really interesting to learn more about how you are supporting, helping others, specifically survivors of human trafficking, online sexual exploitation, or any other types of sexual violence. And maybe or not maybe lots of us, me as a parent, will learn certain things that we need to be aware of and keep everyone or our loved ones safe from these type of situations. So over to you to provide a bit of an intro of yourself, of what you're doing currently through your non-for-profit, and happy to hear and learn from you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here. Like you said, my name's Jake, and I'm primarily a founding member of a nonprofit called International Protection Alliance, and we serve kids who are sexually exploited online. Um, uh, that can mean a lot of different things, but in its simplest form, it's any sex crimes that exist with children and utilize technology. This can look like kids that were filmed during abuse and that being sold. It can look like grooming. It can look like blackmail scams. It can look like a lot of different things. And then I'm also a therapist in Utah for survivors who've been through that same thing. And then for parents whose kids were sexually abused and they're navigating what that looks like, learning about it, the ruptures in their family and care systems, navigating with the justice system, all that stuff that comes with learning your child is sexually abused. That's something I work on as a therapist with parents. And that's just a little bit of my background. So thank you so much for having me on. I'm happy to be on the show.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks, Jacob. And well, it doesn't sound as easy to help others. Obviously, it's great that you're doing it and helping families, especially parents and all kids that have gone through these unfortunate situations. And as we know, there's lots of technology around us. We are immersed into it, and also kids, which has its downside of probably not having the right measures in place, regulation too, which creates this situation where we're at facing it. There's only one way to approach it. From what I've seen, it's we need to learn, because as long as we try to think or plan like, oh, it's okay, it's not here, it doesn't exist, well, there's lots of information technology tools that we are not even aware they are around, and especially for our kids. Sometimes for me, I am surprised, like my kid comes back from school and they know something. Obviously they have certain connections, communication with their friends, and probably if you think your kids are safe, let's say, because they don't have a device carrying it to school, well, other kids might have it, or they can be in contact with others. And the best way would be one, communication, but the other one might be, and you are the expert, so I'm going to pass it over to you to see what are key things that we might need to be aware of. Let's say any specific flags or tools that might be available. I know for like kids, we have this parent tool that I use, and I can restrict certain things they can do and cannot do, or download apps and whatnot. So thanks for your insights, and happy to hear them, Jacob.
Yeah. Yeah. Parents and prevention is a really hard one, right? Because we want our kids to grow up to have experiences to explore. We want to trust our kids. We want to see them grow up and become adults that can navigate the world in front of them, right? Um, uh, when you give kids freedom, you also invite risk. And an easy example of that is if you wear a seatbelt in a car, you're safer. You can move less. You can't twist as much. You can't go to the back seat. If you unbuckle, you can move around a lot. You have more autonomy, but then you're also at much greater risk if you get in a car accident. And so just like that, when like we give our kids autonomy, we're also giving them the opportunity to be heard. So social media is a complicated one, and working with parents, I always advise one, just encouraging open conversation. And I don't mean just, hey, you can tell me anything, but practicing giving your kid the space to tell you things and not punishing them for it. One set of parents I know does like a bubble where the teen can say, "Hey, we're going to be in a bubble, and whatever I say in the bubble, I can't get in trouble for it." And that's like they have a very formal thing like that that their kid can practice, and they've done that since they were really little. Um, uh, there's a lot of dangers with kids having devices, being on social media, even online gaming. Sexual exploitation happens on all of those forums because people from all around the world are given access to your kid. And that's what happens when we let our kids online is they can access the entire world, but the world can access our kid. And that can take place in direct messages. It can take place in gaming. It can take place in chatting. It can take place on apps that are built to keep everybody anonymous. There's tons of different things that happen. And when you're talking to your kid, these are the kind of conversations you need to have. It's not, what do you like? It's not a if you get a DM from a predator, it's when. Like everybody that's on social media gets DMs from scams, people wanting their money, people wanting to talk to them. Like there's articles out that you can read where people who are influencers on TikTok and Instagram with their kids, they get direct messages from people talking about doing terrible things to their children and wanting to. And that's considered pretty normative in parents that do this. And so there's a lot of different safety things, but conversation is the biggest one. Age appropriate access, helping your kids understand risk and letting them know, hey, if you do something like send a nude photo online and then the person tries to blackmail you for it, you can tell me about it. And we'll handle it together. Those are real conversations and real situations. That's something scammers do in all over the world, actually. But um, uh, like Utah's had a few big cases recently, and they've published some news articles about it. But it's a scam called sextortion, and people DM children. They typically boys 11 to 15. English speaking is kind of the target, and they get them. They pose as like a girl their age. They flirt with them. They get them to send a nude image, and then they blackmail them with the image for money. And if they don't send money, they tell the kid to take their life. And we had a really public case in Utah that the time from the first direct message to suicide was only 5 hours, and that's not uncommon. There's public cases that are in under 2 hours that I've read, and it's terrifying because if that's not a preemptive conversation you have with your kid, then the only voice they're listening to in that moment is the person direct messaging them, telling them to take their life, telling them they're going to ruin their life. Where in reality, if they just set down their phone and went and talked to their parents, then it's okay. Well, now let's figure this out together. Um, uh, so conversations like that, if your kids have tech and are on these social media platforms, like realize these platforms, even if they market themselves as safe, they're not. And they really pose a risk to your kid. And it's really hard and can be really harmful. So, I mean, that's where I usually start with parents is discussions around things like that.
Thank you, Jacob. And it's a great approach. I had another conversation separate, like not this topic per se, but still talking about how you can have this trust and foundational work with your kids because they're going to grow. There's so much control you can have, right? Like the control will not really help you drive your relationship with your kid. And as they
Mhm.
grow up, they will have freedom. And obviously, there's responsibility that comes with it, but it's easier to or better to create this bonding, this connection of trust that they can go with you and it's an open line of communication and not really will feel they would not have to feel ashamed or the maybe fear that they'll be punished or certain things like consequences will happen. So I think that's great because also at other times we know from different cases, maybe when there's sexual abuse or so with kids, it can happen with someone that is close to the family.
Yeah.
So it totally goes in line with what you have mentioned, and it's the best approach. So thanks for the advice. And as you mentioned, like every day, I think at least once a week in the news, I hear certain things like this sextortion that you mentioned. I heard some news, and it was crazy to learn how it works and how kids have taken their lives. And maybe it's too late, right, for parents to do something, but they're trying.
Hello. Hello.
Hi again. Sorry for the abrupt situation. Not sure what happened with my internet, so I'm gonna edit this piece and then we'll have it together.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Sorry about it. Hopefully it doesn't happen. It hasn't
Yeah,
happened so far, so my apologies, Jacob. Okay.
you are all good.
Okay, good. Thank you. So yeah, I was just getting back into what I was suggesting or mentioning is yes, obviously these cases of sextortion, of many situations happening. It's daily or weekly. I hear in the news, as you mentioned, like from Snapchat this week, or Roblox, or many other things. As you mentioned, video gaming or gaming in this case. So tricky, but also having these foundational pieces will be the best tools that we have as parents. So thank you. One of the questions or things that maybe would be interesting to dive in and learn more from you is on this not for profit that you are a co founder. If you can let us know more about the work you're doing, how you are creating an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two main initiatives. One is we work with law enforcement to identify people using the internet to harm kids. And so we'll identify people on their accounts, primarily on social media accounts. Um, a lot of our cases have come from Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, messaging apps like Telegram, WhatsApp, things like that. And we identify people that are sexually exploiting kids. They're either looking for kids to exploit or they're often selling videos of children being exploited. And the term for that's CSAM, it's child sexual abuse material. It used to be called child pornography. And they as a field, it was renamed because it's not the same thing as what people think of when they think of pornography. When people think of pornography, they have a very usually specific idea of what that is. But this is videos and images of kids being raped, and that's what's being sold and distributed. And so we work with police to identify people doing it, and then to identify the kids in the videos. And then we work with law enforcement on prosecutions. And then my job in the nonprofit is all of our initiatives that support survivors who've been through this. So I hire and train up our social workers. I help manage our caseload, those kind of things. And that's my job, is managing our survivor related impact. We have other co-founders. One is in finance and business and knows that side of nonprofit really, really well. One is former law enforcement and was an internet crimes against children investigator. And another's been in the space forever and it just works liaison, investigations, government connections, all of those kind of things, right? Because we're a nonprofit. Nonprofits can't go and arrest somebody. We can't remove a kid from a home if they're being abused. Like, nonprofits don't get to do that. They don't have the authority to do that. The government does. And so we work with government agencies to say, hey, we've identified abuse happening in this home. Here's the report of what's going on, and then they're able to action it, and then we can help them and then help those clients. Currently, about 80% of our clients are boys. Wasn't what we intended. It wasn't what we sought out. It's just the cases we've identified and worked. The majority of kids that were being abused were boys between like 11 and 15. And so that's kind of a broad overview of what we do. And we have a couple offices in Asia. We work here in the US, and then we've had a little bit of impact with training or individual program support in Latin America and Africa.
Great.
So, yeah.
Glad to hear you have lots of co-founders that have great backgrounds that will hopefully will support these for long enough that it will create the change. So that's amazing. And maybe one of the key things, we'll be sharing the links if you provide one, or the information as well, but it will be, how can anyone listening support your...
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll send over links for our website. I'll send over stuff we created a YouTube video talking about one of our cases really in depth, running you through exactly what happens and all of that kind of stuff. And then the easiest and low impact things that help us is following us on our socials, signing up for our newsletter, sharing what we do. We're a nonprofit, so we don't get to exist unless other people donate to us. We're not a money-making organization. We cost money. And so if you want what we do to continue, donating is always welcome. We've had companies do grants with us, or matching grants. We provided training. We have monthly donors that sign up to give up monthly, and that allows us to kind of project impact, and then getting connections with foundations that give grants to nonprofits. All of those things are incredibly helpful, and just sharing our stuff, helping us grow. That's all. Everything that people do for us is great, and we're grateful for all of it. We really are. So thank you for asking, and I'll definitely send over some stuff.
Amazing. Yes, happy to share it, and obviously to create the change, to make it happen. The broader you can reach, the better. And obviously these others projects you have, like to support Latin America countries in Africa too, it's great to hear. I know when there's not as many resources in other countries, maybe there's close to none support or care on these specific situations, but we know it happens everywhere around the globe. Yeah. So that's really good to hear, to learn from. And I know we mentioned kind of like a proactive way to approach this, to avoid getting into a case or situation of exploitation or sexual type of abuse through internet. What else could happen? Let's say maybe for parents that have teenagers that have had, or they have more control on what they're doing. Are there any type of flags that might be?
Yeah. Yeah, kids, there's a lot of flags, and no flag in and of itself is, hey, this is exactly what's happening. Flags are just warning signals to be like, I should look into this more. It's really common for kids to get gifts from the people that exploit them, whether that's online or in person. I've worked with kids who've been given clothing, cell phones, money, all of these kind of things. And if your kid is getting free stuff from somewhere, that's something to look at, because someone's giving your kid something and they're probably getting something from it, and you want to know who that is. Um, uh, Having multiple secret social media accounts, which is hard to find out about your kid, but lots of teens create a front account that they work with their parents know about, and then they have other Twitters and other Facebooks and other things like that. And just being aware of, talking to your kids about it, letting them know, like, once again, in a disclosure way, if that's something you did and something bad happens, I still want you to tell me, and we'll still figure it out because we're on the same team. Those are all things I would look at. If the abuse is in person, going and having untreated wounds, untreated illnesses, something that kids will do is, in psychology, we call them developmental stages, and we kind of have an order of how we develop naturally. You can look those up, you can read about them, and those will change a little bit based on culture, environment, and things like that. But one of the things we see in survivors of abuse is when you're really little and you're navigating sexual abuse, you start to navigate what people normally do later in life with sexual experiences as a young kid. And so kids asking developmentally inappropriate questions about sex and sexuality is something to look into. Where did you learn that? What's making you wonder? Um, why are you asking me that question? And be curious. I always use the phrase be curious, not judgmental, because if you're judging and shaming, your kid's going to stop talking about it. But if you're curious about it and you just want to know more, then it opens the door for your kid to share. So those are all things I advise parents to look for in that.
Okay, thank you. And that totally resonates. My daughter is growing, and I have taken this approach, like, okay, when she starts asking things that it's different from the regular stuff, right? That you're aware, or that you have been listening, hearing from her. I'm like, okay, so tell me more. And that type of inquisitive mind and questions helps a lot open the dialogue and figure out, like, if there's any type of flags, or just learn more and be aware, like there's always something that might be around that can happen, but it's totally great to learn and get the advice from you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Jacob. And I know one of the final things, just to make sure we discuss from your overall professional background and what you do. Obviously, we have gone through the non-for-profit, some of your advice, and we know you're in Utah, your practice is there, and I just want to confirm that's the place where you can provide your therapy and your consultations, correct? It's just
Yep.
in you. Okay,
Utah and Arizona. I can do
gotcha.
consultations anywhere. Consultations are not therapy, but to provide therapy, it has to be in Utah or Arizona.
Okay, perfect. So Utah and Arizona. Okay,
Yes.
amazing. Okay. Thank you, Jacob. So obviously all of this information will be shared within the comment section. So anyone interested to learn more, to follow you, to hear from you, will be able to do that. And if there's any wrap up, comments, thoughts, things that you want to comment, feel free to do them before we say
Okay.
goodbye. But it's amazing to hear all the work you are doing and how you're trying to create change and a safe place for kids to grow and develop.
Yeah. I would say first, just thank you guys for caring about the topic. It matters. It's important. It's a growing problem. It really is. And it's one that teens and kids live with. Um, uh, if you want to reach out to me and you want to talk, I'll send my LinkedIn. I'll also give an email for a nonprofit to reach out to, and would love to hear from you. If you want to be involved, you want to help in some way, you want to learn more about what we do, please reach out. Please follow us along, and just thank you again for having me on. It's great to be here, and you're wonderful. So thank you.
Thanks, Jacob. Greatly appreciate it. And I know spreading the word, helping others learn, and just creating this specific type of content that it's to help others to learn, and it's easy to digest, and it can be shared across platforms. It's what we're trying to achieve. So again, thanks, Jacob. Have a great day, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.